which was the last year's most popular man. I think that the 90s was the best time in cinema history to make. Hello everybody, Scott here, and welcome to a brand new episode of Scott Recommend Movies. In this episode, I thought about talking about a science fiction and action classic, a more modern classic, and that is The Matrix. I thought about talking about the first movie today, because I haven't seen the other movies yet, but I've heard they are trash. But I've heard a lot of positive things about the first one. And I watched the first one last year, and it was a great movie. I don't regret watching it, because I said it was a great movie. As the main character, it stars Keanu Reeves, which was last year's most popular man, if you ever watched the internet around that time. He plays Neo, I think his name was. I haven't checked up so much facts yet, but I think it was Neo. Well, it's about this kind of post-apocalyptic future where the robots have taken over the world and put all the humans into kind of slaves where they are inside a computer named the Matrix. And then Neo is a part of a resistance or a rebellion where they try to get out of the Matrix and end the whole Matrix thing so that everybody is back to normal life and the normal world. It was released in the late 90s, and the other two movies were released the same year, a few years after that. So I said that this movie was made in the 90s, and if you ask me, I think that the 90s was the best time in cinema history to make action or science fiction. It was like an in-between part. So in the 90s, all the best action and science fiction came out, at least with the best quality. The 80s had the most iconic sci-fi movies and action movies. You know, like Rambo, Die Hard, and on the science fiction genre we had the Star Wars 5 and 6 and Back to the Future, and those are the most iconic movies in their own genre. But in the 90s, it was the time for best quality movies. You can definitely see it in movies like Matrix and Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which I have already talked about in an earlier episode. You can find a link to it right up here, or here. Because in the 90s, the technology within cinema had become way more better and advanced, and the same with the CGI too, but it was still a minimum, so they couldn't do anything in the world. You know, like in Jurassic Park, which also came out in the 90s, they used a little bit CGI, and it looked really realistic and still holds up today. It was still hard to use the CGI back then, so therefore they used mostly practical effects. I can see that in Matrix 2, they use a little bit CGI here and there, but they use a lot of time practical effects, because the CGI was still very hard to work with, and you had to wait very long for it to render and all that. But in today's movies, they can do anything with a computer. I could just do this and do that, and everything is possible. So today's movies have lost their kind of interesting part, because everything is done on a computer. But with the Matrix, that is inside of a computer, they still use a lot of practical effects combined with CGI. That was something they did a lot in the 90s, which I think was really great. So I think that most of the things I love about this movie is basically how they made it with the effects, both VFX and practical effects. And the story is really good too. It is around a topic that I have heard many talk about, that are we all inside of a computer, and is this just a game? They explore the topic in this movie, because nobody in the Matrix know that they are inside of a computer. They think this is the real world, except for the resistance group, which apparently know it. So yeah, I don't know much more to say about The Matrix, but it's a great movie, and you should definitely check it out. One of the best action movies of the 90s, and probably one of the best action sci-fis in the history. If you enjoyed this video, I have many other videos on my channel. You can check them out here and here. And you can also subscribe to my channel or like this video. I would love to hear what you think about The Matrix, so you can leave your opinion down in the comments down below. And see you next time. Goodbye.